Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thanks for being here. I already see lots of people joining. Ciao, Antonio.
Ciao Silvio, good morning everyone.
So maybe we can just wait a couple of
Yeah,
seconds more, and then we can dive straight into the topic of today. Hope is actually an interesting one. I believe it is, as it's actually a big step for Italian payment and fiscalization industry as a whole. We're talking about the mandatory connection that will happen between fiscalization and payments, and starting from January 2026. So a good way to end 2025. We're making some clarity here today about this regulatory change and how this will impact taxpayers, acquirers, and POS systems in general.
yeah,
So actually, if it's fine for you, I just start straight talking briefly about Fiscally. So we're a tech company. We started back in 2019. We're based out of Vienna, Austria, and we specialize in cloud fiscalization. We do serve more than 1 million POS distributed across different countries in Europe, and we cover Germany, Austria, Spain, Italy, and France at this moment. But new countries as well will be coming soon in 2026. I leave it to you, Antonio.
thank you very much. So Dojo is an international acquirer. We're born in UK, and finally last year we launched in a few other countries in Europe, so Ireland first, Spain, and Italy in October. At the moment, we are serving more than 110,000 customers in those countries, and we place ourselves as a tech company as well, being cloud native and cloud based on all our systems.
And about the date and the agenda for today. So we are starting with the legal overview in terms of having the references of this regulatory change. So giving us as well exactly the law and the regulatory documents on which this new mandatory change is based. Just to start from the very key reference in terms of communication, and then trying to have an interpretation or perspective of these. So what this means for merchants, for POS providers, and then of course having as well our perspective coming out from fiscalization, coming out from the payments world. So how we can actually simplify these new requirements that will start in 2026. And of course, we'll end up with some time for Q&A, so we can actually ask free questions to us on this topic or the topics related to payment and fiscalization. Without, of course, needless to say, we decided to do this webinar together because it's impacting both fiscalization and payments. And so starting from the regulatory aspects of it, we all know in Italy it's mandatory since ages now, so from 2015, that on a daily basis, the fiscal data are communicated to the revenue agency. So this has been a separate kind of entity where all fiscalization data are communicated to the agency. I let actually Antonio expand on the second provision, the one that actually relates to acquirers, but
Yes, correct. That's our obligation, actually. So since March 2025, the evolution of the way that the government and the tax authority wants to connect the fiscal and the payment side of things together ended up in March giving us all the instructions and details about how and what we have to communicate to the tax authority in order for them to have a trace of everything that happens on our card machines. And then, of course, at the end, the final step that the government and the tax authority are taking is the budget law of 2025, in which these two parts, so the fiscalizations and the communication of data from acquirers in general, payment providers, PSPs, actually takes place.
Yeah, so just as well to sum it up again, it's just that these two separate entities, so the data for fiscalization that has been there communicated to the agency, the data for payments, which is also a mandatory requirement as of now, they're now coming together with this budget law. So they're now converging in what is this new provision and this new budget law. Also, this is coming from mirroring the technological change that is out there in the market, where basically we are seeing more and more adoption in terms of payment, cloud fiscalization systems, and so on.
It's worth to point out that the government is trying to keep the pace with the technological advance, and this is, I mean, also the rationale behind all the changes that are happening in Italy about payment and fiscalization.
Thank you.
So just to sum up, so what is up to us as acquirer since basically, I mean, last year. So now we have to technically communicate a lot of data. If someone is interested, of course, we can have a discussion on exactly what data we have to communicate, but it's pretty easy, straightforward. But also in October, the provision that the tax authority, the ADE, Agenzia delle Entrate, has communicated is the way the merchant and the acquirer has to be put together in their cassetto fiscale, so the SDI cassetto fiscale, portal, in order to map out the terminal ID and or the RT, so the fiscal register, they're using in every single point of sales.
Exactly. Sorry. So, I mean, just the way we just mentioned that there is this convergence and exactly the budget law through this provision, which is the one of the last 31st October. So it's very, very recent, actually mandate the technical, characteristics and specification on which this type of connection should be done. So today we're going to talk about the content of it. So exactly, what is the requirement from the taxpayer side, from the merchant side, and so what they should be doing starting from January 2026. And just to get a bit more in depth about what this means and the actual content of this provision, I think we can say that there are three main activities related to that.
Yes. So the first one is the identification. So the first steps that everyone has to take is two sides, basically. So the first one is the fiscal side. So we have to identify, so the merchant has to identify the RT certificates in order to be able to select it on the portal that will be made available from the tax authority in March. So we'll come back to that later on. And on our side, so on the payment side, the information that are needed are, first of all, the TID, so the terminal ID, and of course the fiscal code of the acquirer. All this information will be made available from us, of course, but at the same time we are communicating this already to the tax authority so that they can be readily available on the portal when this one comes out. After that is on the ends of the merchant, so it's mandatory for him to map and so to match these numbers, this information on the payment side with the information related to the fiscal side of things.
I may anticipate actually a question here that I think is actually very relevant. We receive that a lot of times. And the question is, of course, I'm using different kind of payment systems. So I'm not using just one, I'm using different terminals. You mentioned one is a digital one, another one is a physical one.
Yeah.
How should I handle the situation? Can I handle
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it is worth to highlight that is an end-to-end connection. So you can manage multiple devices, both on the payment side and the fiscal side. And there are no difference between a soft POS, so a software that acts as a terminal device that is able to take payments, or a device which is a physical one. Both of them will have a TID, and at the same time, both of them are related to contratto di convenzionamento, so a legal contract that put together the merchants and the acquirer itself. So the operation is pretty much similar, so you don't have to do anything special or specific to soft POS rather than physical devices.
So circling back to the three activities that are actually part of this whole requirement. So identification is the first one, and we actually cleared out what are the needed data from both the fiscal side and the payment side. Then this association needs to be done, as Antonio was pointing out, on the fiscal drawer. So there's a dedicated portal that you have actually to input this data and to make this association. And then I think it's worth mentioning the fact that this is actually a mapping kind of logic. So it's not an actual integration at a deeper level, a transaction level, but rather with the intent of having like a mapping from the revenue agency side of which payment terminal is being used, which fiscal device are being used, whether it be physical or digital, it doesn't matter. But it's just basically with the aim from the agency, the revenue agency, to have actually clear overview of what's in the market, what solutions the taxpayers are using, and so on.
Yes, this last part is actually the news, and also where the confusion came from in the past, because we had to wait up to October in order to have a bit more clarification, and there has been a lot of misunderstanding around physical connection or what kind of connection we should have. Actually, there's no need for any connection. It's just a mapping done on this portal.
And talking about these, I think is actually very interesting to see and to understand specifically for Italy that this is actually coming from a long way. This is happening in 2026, but it's been planned for ages now, for years, and so it's now seeing realization. But this is part, prospectively speaking, of a bigger kind of ambition from the revenue agency that, as you just mentioned it, having a type of data matching and integration that is at transaction level, meaning that the type of data that you have on the payment side and on the fiscal side actually match at the receipt at the single transaction level. So just for clarity, this is not the case as of now. This is not the case with this type of a provision. It will actually be more kind of a high level monthly or daily kind of association of these two separate fields, which are fiscalization and payment. And then, of course, another clear objective and aim is the one of reducing VAT evasion. So for the sake of transparency and efficiency as well on the fiscal and payment side, these two kind of fields are going more and more integrated, more and more transparent. And once again, I think we can talk about what is actually outside that is happening all over, which is the evolution of the digital system, both on payment side and POS side. We're seeing more and more the rise of cashless payments, new type of tax system, of fiscalization system. We're now going digital as well there in Italy, where the industry was dominated and still is by fiscal printers.
Yes.
So yeah.
No, I think that this is very important to point it out, because apart from the tax objectives that, of course, the tax authority has, there is also a way for the government to keep the pace with the technology advance, and also the adoption of cashless or digital payments from the consumer. In fact, I mean, last year we have been established that the digital payments have overcome the cash usage. And this is a great achievement for Italy also, because we are really lagging behind compared to the other European countries. But I guess that the most important thing is that finally the tax authority and the government are aligning to what in reality is happening in the market.
So it's a really key year, because the same thing is also happening on the fiscal side. Finally, cloud fiscalization as well is happening. It's taking over in Italy. And so it's a proper kind of evolution and matching from these two worlds that are actually converging. Another important question that we want to answer today, and I think is important for anyone who is answering here today, is when this is happening, clarity on the timelines and so on. Do I do to do anything specific from the 1st January and so on? So
that's correct. So in January, actually nothing happens. So the portal into the fiscal drawer of the merchants, of the owner, will be available just in March. So we still have some times in order to get the right informations and get ready for that point. And even after that, the owners have 45 days in order to adopt all the necessary requirements in store.
So there is kind of a grace period, which is actually this 45 period. And I want to make clear that so the actual obligation to pay payments and fiscalization, it is true that is coming into effectiveness from January, but it won't be triggering any fines or fees or any actual compliance until there is actually an online tool and portal from the revenue agency side. This has been communicated that will happen in March. It is possible that there will be, of course, a slight variance on the actual date, probably being, postponed or not. We will get more information as well about these in the next weeks and months. But in general, until there is no actual web portal adapted for that on the revenue agency side, there is no obligation for the taxpayer. And when there will be, through the official publication of these, merchant will still have 45 days for adapting and doing this association that we just talked about. So hoping that is quite clear and answering as well to the question on what should I do from the first January and what should I do actually to comply with these. We're now going about in general about the main challenges that are actually related to these compliance requirement that is coming.
Yeah, I think so. The first real challenge is to better understand what the regulation is. So this is also the aim of this webinar. And because so far there has been a lot of confusion about what kind of integration we need to have between a car machine, so a POS, as we say in Italian, a POS device, and an RT, so a fiscal register. So actually, so far and for now, there is no need for any kind of integration. The most common here in Italy is the Protocol 17, even though there are a lot of players like us that prefer to utilize some kind of API and cloud connections with the ecosystems. Why this is important to say and to stress, because there is a logistic challenge for all the people involved, because I mean, if we are just thinking about single merchant, that's pretty easy and straightforward. But once you have to deal with thousands of terminals, the operation becomes a bit more complicated. So getting the information and gathering the information, it's kind of messy.
I want to highlight as well the fact that the previous information that we mentioned, so the terminal ID of each payment terminal, the reference, the ID, and the certificates of each fiscal device, whether it be physical or digital, these needs, of course, communicated related to the specific point of sale, to the specific location of the merchant. So having, for instance, some sort of operation to the extent of a region or country or so on, the logistic challenge is definitely there. And that brings us as well to, the topic of fleet management, of maintenance of those, and especially when it comes to compliance, because of course, every time that you will need to change anything on these, you're adding a payment service, you're changing your fiscal printer, so anything like this, you'll actually need to do all these activities
on the portal, correct. And yeah, I would like to remind to everyone that in Italy, for instance, there are 3.5 million POS car machines, so pretty a massive number.
Yeah.
But this is also why it is important to stress the importance of adopt and use as much as possible software-based systems or cloud-based potentially, because of course it's much easier to manage this, and there are a lot of opportunities for people that has this technology in order to operate on a scale, in order to be fast and more secure.
Same thing actually stands for fiscalization. We're sitting a bit below 2 million devices, fiscalization devices in Italy. So if you're thinking about, the association of these on each specific location, that's quite a massive kind of communication. And that brings as well to another question and another actually challenge that is there, that we are going to make it easy as well for our partners. That is actually the pressure of deadlines, because as we just showed you, this whole thing in terms of compliance is coming down to 45 days when this will be rolled out. And so this is happening in March. That means that we have about, as Antonio was saying, about 3 million devices in terms of payment that will need to be mapped and correct and sent in terms of information directly to revenue agency, and a bit less than 2 million fiscal devices, which of course needs as well to be paired and communicated. So we have lots of pressure on the deadlines, and kind of natural and bottleneck by design from the revenue agency, I would say.
Yeah.
So I also would like to take a couple minutes of hearing from you what you think on this topic. If you have as well, challenges, question, and so on. We'll get back to question later. But now just to have a sense on the main concern that you have regarding this obligation and so on, so you can actually answer directly. And we're seeing quite some pattern there in terms of responses, where I believe information is key, as always. Well, I think we're still head-to-head. Technical complexity as a challenge, and as well the need for clarity.
Yes.
So, as expected, very different actually from
the from the previous one.
The second one that we'd like to hear from you is, where do you stand with the mapping of these devices? We're talking about the terminal ID for the payment and the reference ID for a certificate for fiscal devices.
Okay.
But I think the pattern here is, quite clear. So not started.
Yeah. Okay.
There's someone who is ready.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, still.
Yeah, makes sense.
So hopefully we have good news for all the people that are also working or still have to work on moving forward with the technical specification and this data. We'll get back to that in a couple of minutes.
Last one.
Yes, on the last one, how do you plan to manage the technological upgrade of the point of sale? Cloud dominating, of course, in terms of answer. That's not a surprise. I think cloud makes things easier on all those topics, and we'll expand on that right after. All right. So lots of indecision, but in general, of course, cloud is one of the solutions, I think, on this. And we can get back on exactly on this topic. So from fiscalization side, as we've seen in Italy, we have these two possibility of having hardware-based fiscalization, cloud-based fiscalization, and managing these using cloud solution as we do and serving those through API that gives you scalability, that gives you instant control over the resource that you're managing. So all these activities are actually done in a very smooth way, frictionless, meaning that these all as well requirement for the integration will be managed directly through our API. And you can see in this case that compliance comes as a competitive advantage because it removes the friction and ensure a smooth experience for taxpayers, for merchants, and as well the problem of eventually fines if you're not complying and managing all this type of data. So we have a proposition that refers directly to the POS system, retailer, in case they're managing directly the software for which they're managing their stores, or as well with partners like acquirers that actually will need to do this type of communication as well. I leave it to Antonio to talk more about the benefit of from the payment perspective.
Yeah, so the first one for sure is the speed with which you can actually adapt to the new regulation, because being a cloud-based company, integration with us through an API is the easiest way possible. And of course, this leads together the simplicity of the maintenance, because of course you don't have to manage and maintain a lot of systems or hardwares in particular. Cost saving, that's an indirect consequence of that, of course. But most importantly, especially when we are talking about money and communication to the tax authority, fast updates. So yeah, you never risk to be out of dated, and in particular safety. We know today safety is one of the major concerns of everyone when we talk about cloud or software in general, and working with us and in cloud is obviously the best way to make sure that the security is always respected at the highest level possible. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the idea as well is to take a couple of minutes for Q&A. So if hearing more from you in terms of questions that you may have, you can write that in the chat. I think we already have some questions. Please write it in the public chat if you can. Otherwise, we will see it from private.
There is a private one for tap to pay on iPhone on soft tops or two smartphones. Say 2 POS. Yes. Yeah. So yes, this is something that we didn't mention before. So basically, every physical or logical device, like as a soft POS, as a TID, so as a terminal ID. So in this case, you can actually you have to consider them as two different POS, as we say in Italy, or device or car machine, and so they have two different identifiers. They're not fiscal numbers. Fiscal numbers is related to the fiscal register, or RT, as we say in Italy. When we speak about the payment devices, we just talk about TID or the number of the contract, which is called contratto di convenzionamento in the actual Italian law, and these are the things that we as acquirer has to communicate to the tax authority in general, And these are the information that the merchant will find in his own portal, fiscal drawer, and he only has to match this information with the fiscal informations that will already be filled into that portal. So they only have to identify which car machine or device has to communicate, has to be mapped with the specific RT device.
And
what is the portability of merchant versus the PSP? The PSP has the obligation to communicate monthly a set of data with a specific format and a specific procedure that is outlined in one specific regulation. And that's the only things that we have to do as PSP. On the other side, the merchant has the obligation to map on the fiscal drawer, as I said before, the correspondence between the fiscal device and the payment device. That's it.
I just want to understand whether it can be done, of course, on the fiscal drawer, but as well in the case of Fiscally, we will be supporting this as much as possible through our API. So as well, there will be full support of this communication association through Fiscal API, for instance. And the question that we see, is it something going to change regarding the payment info that we must be presented in the commercial document? Well, the response is no, because as we were saying before, we're talking about an integration or a connection that is an aggregate level, meaning that at a transaction level, actually nothing changed, meaning that just the total number that is communicated to the agency on a daily or monthly basis, that is going actually to be associated at the end of the month for the revenue agency. So no changes on the actual receipt or single transaction kind of
correct
level. So, and responding to the other as well, if I have two devices for fiscalization and two devices as well for payment terminals, same thing there. It's an end-to-end kind of association, meaning that also here you can have as many devices you want, and that type of connection can be still done properly on the way that we just described.
Yeah. And where to find these informations? I mean, the provider like us or the acquirer can provide all these informations very easily. Actually, they are in the contract as well, so it should be even easier to find. Or in most cases, like us, in the pay app that is provided with the car machine, you can find most of the times this information. But of course, it's going to be on our side. We're going to do all that is possible in order to provide these informations in a easier format.
Anyway, you can actually write us for any other type of question that you may have. We'll leave as well our reference here in contacts. Also, we prepared documents, a guide with the FAQ exactly on this topic. So you may find actually here also useful information. And so you can actually get to the guide directly. We want to leave you as well with a more broader view on the last updates in Europe in general, on fiscalization, a few things happening as well in Spain and Germany, on invoicing, or as well on the actual fiscalization requirement. And yeah, you can actually see here our emails and reference for any questions or doubts that you may have. Please feel free to reach out. And yeah, I think just have a great day, and let's keep sync on our channel as well for any news on this payment and fiscal integration.
Thank you very much, Silvio. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye. Good day.
Bye.